we're looking for, or like, when we're looking for like the gross profit, when it's like, sales revenues minus, what's it called? Cost of goods sold, like, why doesn't like the other expenses also go in with the cost of goods sold?
The reason why is because the whole cycle of being a seller is focused on keeping your sales pure. And that's also dealing with the cost of goods sold. If you think about it, we want to specifically see that. I'm just gonna keep this here for reference for now. So you get your net sales minus cost of goods sold. Equals gross. Your net sales itself are consisted of 3 different accounts. You have your sales account minus your sales returns. And then minus your sales expense. This equals your net sales. So the reason why we specifically have this is because it's only a part of the income statement now. This specifically is used to figure out things. If our net sales are low, we can look over here and say, all right, did we have too many returns? Did we have too many discounts? If we have too many discounts and too many returns, like let's say if this number was like 5 million, but then we had like 3 million returns and 1 million discounts. From that 5 million, we were only able to retain 1 million. We're able to say, all right, people are returning our products. Why is that? Additionally, once you get to that net sales part and you have that net sales, you specifically want to see, all right, how much have I made by selling? So you have your cost of goods sold, which is an expense account for your inventory. And you're able to say, all right, have we spent too much money to retain? Because that's why this part's so important, is because you're able to say, all right, my cost of goods sold, like we'll take the same thing. This was 5 million, but our cost of goods sold was 4 million. We only retained 1 million. That's a lot of money that we just kind of went out the door because we put a lot into our product, or we lost a lot of product, depending on, because inventory shrinkage also counts as cost of goods sold.
Okay, so I know that cost of goods sold is an expense, but like, is it an expense to when we're like it's a debit, so really, is it like bad or is it like good for us?
It depends. If your cost of goods sold is low, it's good for us because that means we made a profit while having our inventory at a very affordable amount. If it's high, it means that we put a lot of money into our product, and that could be good or bad depending on what your product's selling and how much you're selling your product.
As in high, do you mean like the debit side?
Yes, because it's going to always be a debit. You're never going to have a credit balance on it. It's not like our allowance account. This only has a debit balance until you get rid of it in the income statement.
So how would you credit it then?
You would credit it, you won't need to know this until like later on, but you would basically credit it when you're closing your entries and saying, all right, it's gone because we've done our income statement. But you wouldn't ever credit it unless you got that inventory back. And again, then you're not going into negatives. Because you've already accounted for that inventory being gone, so if you're just reversing it, you're reversing it.
Oh, like return, like when someone makes a return?
Yep.
I was like, okay, yeah, we did that one.
Does that help out?
Yeah, because I was confused, because like I'm doing the one with the multi-step one.
Multi-step income statements.
Yeah, and I was confused because it said selling expenses and cost of goods sold, so I didn't know if I was supposed to add those up or not.
Selling expenses are completely different, because those are basically the second part, because you start getting rid of selling expenses and then general and administrative. And again, the reason why we categorize these things is just for categorization's sake, to be able to look at it and say, all right, how much money have we lost through selling? How much money have we lost through general administration? Because if it was all mixed together, it's a headache. Management doesn't want it all mixed together. Management wants to say, okay, we have a problem area here, here, or here, and we can pinpoint it.
So, and then also with the net sales, like, is it always going to be like sales, like, is it always going to be like that? Or like, you know how like, the revenue is sometimes split, like contributed revenue or something like that, like, I don't know, explain it like.
It's It's basically its own revenue account, yes, but it's usually always said as sales because sales is specific to the terms of a merchandise company. Where we're selling things, we're not a manufacturing company or something like that, we're just selling product. Usually when we get like service revenue, it's to indicate we did a service.
So like cash sales and sales on credit, that would be, like, if you add those up to get sales, right?
Yes. But we have to remember, you get your sales when you get your sales. So when we sell on, whether we sell on credit or we sell on cash, what do you count when you do that service, when you sold an item? Revenue. So you're never gonna have a mix of revenue, it's more or less all gonna be together for cash or credit sales. So there's not gonna be a split.
Okay. So then like the general administrative expenses, selling expenses, they're just there.
They're there for categorizing, yes.
Okay.
And the only thing you really need to know about them is that selling expenses, think about, all right, I'm out on the sales floor, I'm giving people bottles, I'm considered a salary employee on the floor. The guy in the back of the office that's typing on his computer, that's an office guy. He's someone different. And that's the best way to kind of figure out how to categorize it.
I understand now. I was just confused, like, why it was like that.
Yeah, of course. No, I completely understand.
Yeah, so I don't wanna like in the future, like mix them out, but.
I believe in you.
Yes.
All right, bounce back over to you. What do you want to work on?
Maybe just chapter 4.
Yeah.
Questions, just the journal.
Yeah, we can do the journal entry. I can set up a fun little chart, actually. Does anybody want to take a picture or keep track of this at all? Because otherwise.
Got it all written down.
Nice. I'm like a vampire in Photoshop. So we see in this chapter two really big things, and I'm gonna want to go over them first before we start working on journal entries, because I find it usually keeps it better in the head. But the big thing is we're focused on being the buyer and we're focused on being the seller. This brings up two very different point of views whenever we're working. As the buyer, our main focus on these journal entries is the value of inventory. We see this when we obviously when we first purchase a product, but when we're dealing with discounts, we don't have a specific discount account, we're lowering the value of inventory. When we return product, we're getting rid of inventory. When we have to pay for shipping, we're involving inventory, because think of it this way. If I bought a book off of Amazon and it said it was $8, but then after shipping it was $15, do I tell people, hey guys, I just got this book for $8, or do I say to people, hey, I got 15?
Perfect.
For 15, because you typically, like, if I said, hey, you want to get this book, it's for $8, and I give you the page and it says 15 at the end, do you think I lied? Yeah.
I can't tell.
Well, no, I understand, but like that's my thought process on it. But all of these involve inventory. So we're gonna put JE as journal entry. Involves inventory. As the seller, on the other hand, the biggest thing that we focus on is keeping our sales pure. We have made the difference between the buyer and the seller is that instead of involving inventory and drag it around for a ride, we have sales in this pretty nice glass box and we just give it toys around it. So our discount, we have to make a specific sales discount. Not only that, but when we're shipping, we are usually using things like delivery expense. It's said different ways. So you're gonna have to go by what your professor says, but I'm just gonna say, short and easy, delivery expense. And then when we're doing returns, we also deal with sales returns. And allowances. Not only that, but we make two separate journal entries when considering returns and when we're selling something, due to the fact we have to make sure that we have what's valuated of our inventory and what's valuated as our sales. But does this make sense?
What was the GE?
JE is journal entry.
Sorry.
No, you're good, you're good. Like, please, if I abbreviate stuff and you don't know what it is, let me know. I'm an accountant. I live off of journal, I mean, I do live off of journal entries, but I also live off of abbreviations. I used to, when I was taking intermediate 2 last semester, I used to bring my homework along with me because it's just all of these abbreviations. And you also see like teacher's notes, all abbreviations. So yeah, all right, with that in mind, we're just gonna kind of put this up here. Put it in a very tiny spot. I'm gonna have both of you guys tell me the journal entries as the seller and as the buyer. So one of you guys could rather have one person be the buyer and one person be seller, or just fill in however you want. So I'll get that set up real quick. And we're just gonna say, we're not gonna worry about FOB shipping point and destination till after. We'll talk about that afterwards. So I'm just gonna put shipping for now. I'm not putting like big old word problems here, because in all honesty, whenever you're doing these, it's gonna be the same thing. Whether you got all the wordy saying, hey, we bought it for this amount of money for XYZ on this amount of, just know exactly the journal entries. And if you know the journal entries, you're able to implement it. We'll actually do some practice problems after, but I like to put this chart up first because it typically helps get people into a good mindset. So, quick question. As us as a buyer, are we losing inventory and having people pay off credit?
Yes. We're losing. I mean,
We're buying inventory when we're the buyer. So this is
are we the company?
yeah, we're the company buying.
Okay.
And basically think of this as we're the company. So as a buyer, we're buying the inventory. As a seller, we're selling the inventory.
Okay. So.
What do you think we're gonna?
Oh, I did this the wrong way, I think. You're buying, redeeming asset,
And it's
and
on
we're
credit.
losing on credit. We bought it all, so accounts payable.
Perfect.
Shipping. Is it delivery expense?
Not as a buyer. Remember what we're focusing on as a buyer?
For inventory? No, wait.
Yep.
Okay.
So I see the accounts, you have the accounts right, but you just gotta set them up in a journal entry. So kind of like how she has them where you have a debit and a credit.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
On inventory.
Would it be inventory?
So we have, for a seller, we have 2 separate journal entries. You're right, you have one journal entry, you just have to format it. Then you have the other journal entry, which you started off well, you have inventory. Do you debit or credit inventory? When you lose inventory, do you debit or credit?
Lose inventory, we credit.
Perfect. And you have to find your debit.
What's the thing for, is it delivery expense? I don't
No,
remember.
it's, so we paid it in cash.
Okay, so we lost cash.
We lost cash. And our inventory became more valuable.
Yeah, we have an asset. And paying with the discount. Oh, I gotta remember this one.
We're not worried about cash as buying and selling, because we're saying this is all sold on account.
Okay, gotcha.
With these, so like I said, set them up kind of like how she set them up, because that's how journal entry looks. You just have to set up, you have one journal entry for the seller, perfect, you just have to make another, because as a seller, it's tougher, you have to make two separate journal entries. Because you have to consider both your profit and your inventory. So you credit your inventory, what do you debit? What new account did we learn? What were we talking about beforehand? About gross profit?
Gross profit.
So what makes gross profit? How do you get gross profit?
I'm not.
That's okay. It's gonna be cost of goods sold.
Cost of goods
So
sold.
think of cost of goods sold. It is legit what it says, cost of
Cost of
goods sold. Now, sometimes the only time that's different is if you have inventory shrinkage. But either way, when you lose inventory, through any means, cost of goods sold. And you'll always see it debited with inventory credited.
Okay, okay, right here, let's start
Yeah.
with this.
So we paid in cash. You have delivery expense, perfect. What do you credit?
Cash.
Perfect. Then over here, so sales returns and allowances. We're gonna use two journal entries for this one too, because we have to keep our sales pure and our inventory pure. So you have the debit here, perfect. What do you think is going to be lowered because people are returning items?
Lowered would be our revenue.
Not our revenue. Because that's why we have a sales returns and allowance account. Instead, what was type of sales that you have to lower?
6.
So take a look at the journal entry above.
Awesome.
Okay.
Well,
You will do that, but we're gonna focus on the profit part. So the profit part of it is that we had a debit sales return and allowances, and we're gonna have to credit.
credit accounts receivable.
Exactly. Think of it, they owe us less now. We're not, it's like if you went to Walmart, you got a whole bunch of stuff, you went to return some toilet paper, and they just took it and looked you straight in the eye. That's the best way I could explain it. Hopefully it helps.
Yeah. So then the second journal entry would be
So what are you handing back when you go to the Walmart return lane?
my inventory.
Yeah, you're giving back the inventory. They're handing you back inventory, so you debit or credit inventory.
Debit.
Perfect. And what do you credit?
Accounts receivable.
Not accounts receivable. We already done that. This is a profit portion. We're worried about the inventory portion. What is no longer true because they gave us the inventory back? So what did you account for when you first sold inventory?
Sold.
Is it accounts receivable?
Nope, because remember, you already accounted for that here. We're worried about the inventory portion now. So we say, all right, we debit inventory because we gained it back, and we have to credit out,
Is it cash?
Oh,
not cash,
cost of goods sold.
cost of goods sold. Because you have to think about it.
There was two of them.
Yep, for these two specific, for buying and selling your returns, as a seller, you have two separate journal entries. Sally, you pick the harder one of the buyer and the sellers. So. Yeah, whenever as a seller, we always have to worry, okay, what's profit? And what's inventory? Because think of it this way, the inventory value is much less than the sales value, because it'd be like if I sold, if I bought this for $200 and sold it to you for $2, I made nothing.
Mhm.
In this case, we have the 3 here and we have the 2 here because I sold it for $3. But I lost $2 worth of inventory. So that's specifically why we have to like break it in half and have 2 separate portions.
So companies, when they buy it at like a price, like a certain price, but when they sell it, they raise the price.
Yep, all the time.
I didn't know that.
Nah, they're out to make a profit, and if they sold it for as much as they got it, they'd make nothing. No one would be in business.
Hmm.
So. All of these journal entries are correct. We're now overpaying with a discount. You're correct. You debit sales discount. What are you receiving and what are you losing?
We are receiving revenue.
Not revenue. You only recognize revenue when it's gotten. So we have sales here, and that's the only time we'll see sales in this whole process. So. When you pay off a debt, do you still have that debt?
No.
So what do you, yeah, credit accounts receivable.
I was thinking accounts payable, but I was like,
Now accounts payable is only when we owe. Now, what's happening for them to lose their account with us?
They're paying us off
Exactly. So what do you debit?
cash.
Perfect. So you always want to make sure you have debits first and then credits.
Cash.
So your sales discount is debit. Accounts receivable is going to be your credit, and cash is going to be your other debit. I said that in a very confusing manner, but you understand what I mean.
Yeah. So this would be at the very bottom, right?
Yep.
which the thing is that cash?
Yes. It usually I put it there because in every problem I've ever seen, we've only ever, whenever we're dealing with shipping, it's always just cash. Also, a good tip is, if you notice where accounts payable and accounts receivable keep flipping around, making T charts is incredibly important because that way you're able to see, all right, at the end of the day, how much discount do I get? Because if I had returned things, my discount's not gonna be the same as it was when I first bought things. Otherwise, that'd be a huge rip off to the store itself because they'd be giving us a bigger discount than what technically it's giving. Yes.
As we the seller, why are we using cash?
Why are we losing cash?
Yeah, because like when people I'm like thinking like realistically, like people, we pay for delivery expenses.
So if, let's say Amazon Prime, you get free shipping, who pays for that shipping? Amazon Prime. So
Why do we have to pay for delivery?
we still pay for well, I mean, think of it this way, through regular Amazon and Amazon Prime. Regular Amazon, you have shipping expenses. Amazon Prime, they pay the shipping expenses.
Oh, so a subscription pay, oh.
Kind of. But that's the best example. That's just an example to show, hey, what's happening here, kind of deal.
Oh.
Because like in this, like I said too, we also have to consider FOB shipping point and FOB destination. So
And those are like those two, like they're separate for the buyer and the seller. Like if we were like the seller, then it would be FOB.
we're responsible for FOB destination as a seller, and the buyer is responsible for FOB shipping point. The best way I can explain for people to remember is by looking at it through the buyer's point of view. So if you have shipping point here, and you have destination here. As a buyer, we know that we're not responsible for destination because it changes hands once it gets home. But if it's shipping point, we know that the moment that it leaves the factory, we're responsible for it. We're basically paying the shipping. Now, you want to look at it as a buyer first and then convert it to whether you're the seller or the buyer. Because that's the easiest way I've been able to figure it out. That might not be the way for you guys, and if so, then I hope, at least seeing it kind of like this helps. We could, talk about it more as well, but that's basically what it is. It's who's responsible for shipping, who's responsible for getting the items over.
Mhm. So as we, the buyer, we would be responsible for shipping. Like for inventory?
Yes. So for shipping point. Now, we're not always, so the only reason I made you guys do the journal entries for shipping isn't because that's always gonna happen. Sometimes you're gonna see, all right, FOB destination. If I was the buyer and I saw FOB destination, I wouldn't have to worry about a journal entry at all. I just basically say, all right, I'm just gonna wait for my package to get here. Now, if it was shipping point, then I'd have to say, all right, I'm paying some extra for shipping. As the seller, if I was looking at this, if it was destination, I'd say, ah, shoot, I have to be responsible for that because I have to make sure it gets there. I have to pay the shipping, so it gets over to the customer. And if it was shipping point, I once again sit back and say, all right, they're dealing with shipping.
Little confusing. Also, is that cash for the thing with discount? Like the, or seller?
Yes,
So is it debited?
yes, because you get cash. You ready for chapter 4?
We'll go with that.
Is there a wall plug anywhere? Here's one over here. All right, you're my best friend now. How about that? Well, we're gonna move over.
I know.
I don't understand the FOB part.
So FOB, I'm not gonna lie, I keep forgetting what FOB,
It's freight on board.
yeah, freight.
But it's not, it's for on board or something. It's not freight anymore. It used to be freight on board.
Free on board.
Freight on board.
free on board.
Oh, it's, is that supposed to be the one where it's like, Southie Fields shipping?
Yeah, so who's responsible for
Destination and I've got the other one.
shipping point?
Shipping, okay, shipping point destination, okay, I get it.
So I made this little chart.
Oh, it's Monday.
Huh? It's Wednesday, yeah, the same chart that I showed Monday,
Yeah,
which basically, always, I like to think of it as a customer. If you look at it as a customer first, it makes sense to me because as a customer, if we don't have to worry about it till it gets to the destination, we don't have to worry about it. But if it's shipping point, we have to worry about it because we have to deal with shipping. But then you just have to reflect it back if you're the seller or the buyer. So,
Oh, now I get it. That was that. I was confused. So for the buyer and seller, it's just like opposite.
it's
Okay.
opposite. Yeah, for the buyer and seller, it's opposite. So, one second. Yeah, it's free on board. I thought it was fried on board too.
I think they changed it in the last 30 years.
So with more people here too, I want to kind of come back to this because this is something very important within this chapter that I feel like everyone should know, take account of. And we'll go back to the journal entries after the show as well. But within this chapter, we're dealing with the buying and selling merchandise. So whenever you're the buyer, the whole cycle revolves around the value of inventory. So you have the discount, the return, and shipping. Whenever you see those as the buyer, you're dealing with inventory, whether you're dealing with inventory. So say for discount, when you pay off within the discount period, you're going to be lowering the value of your inventory because your inventory was cheaper than you thought. When you're dealing with shipping, it's the same thing as if you bought a book off of Amazon for $8, but it ended up being $15. I'm going to tell someone that I got a book for $15 and not a book for $8. And then with returns, if we return inventory, we return our inventory, and there's no special thing about it. So basically, every journal entry as the buyer will involve inventory in some which way, whether it's going up in value or down in value. As the seller, this comes a little bit more chaotic because you have to focus on keeping your sales pure. Basically, instead of using sales as a way to determine how much we've made, we have so many separate accounts to be able to understand what's happening. We have the sales discount. Whenever you sell on discount, you have sales returns and allowances whenever someone returns something. You have your delivery expense whenever you have to pay for shipping. You don't affect sales in any way. And not only that, but you use 2 journal entries for whenever you're selling and whenever you're dealing with returns, because whenever you're selling, you have to consider 2 different things. One thing is going to be, okay, how much profits have we made? And another thing is, all right, how much inventory we lost? Because the value between your profits and your inventory are going to be 2 completely different things, unless you're not wanting to make money. And as for returns, again, you have to understand, okay, how much are they returning from a profit standpoint and from an inventory standpoint? Because from an inventory standpoint, it's still going to be a lot less than the profit standpoint. With that, we had our 2 lovely volunteers make journal entries for both the buyer and the seller. And the reason I kind of put it in a chart like this without us having to actually go through and make do a problem yet is for the pure factor that this is going to be your journal entries no matter what. The numbers don't matter. What matters is how these guys look and how they read. If we just look at the buyer, we're just going to look at the buyer for a minute. When we're buying inventory, we're increasing our inventory with a debit and crediting accounts payable due to the fact that we are now owing someone money.
Got it. Okay.
Yep. So returning, we're losing inventory, but our debt goes lower. So we debit our accounts payable and we credit our inventory because both of them are just lowering down. When we deal with shipping, we use our inventory account to increase its value. Even though we're not getting more inventory in, we're considering that an aspect of the inventory to increase its value because we still have to recoup those costs. So you're a little confused.
Trying to process it.
It's all good. This is like what I was talking about when, if we have to handle the shipping as a buyer. If you bought a book off of Amazon for $8 and the shipping price was $15, would you tell people you got a book for $8 or $15?
15.
And that's why we increase it like that. We're basically telling people, yeah, no, we have this product which is worth this much because it's not worth that $8 we thought we got it for, it's worth $15. And the last part, when paying with a discount, again, you're losing your account payable because you owe no more money. But you credit cash because you have to pay cash. And instead of having a specific discount account, you use inventory because technically your inventory was not worth as much as you thought it was. Now, whenever we look over as a seller, whenever we're selling inventory, we have to deal with these 2 separate journal entries. You have your account receivable and your sales because technically you sold an account. You basically get that profit, you get that revenue while also making an account saying, all right, this guy will pay me back later, I hope. As we know from chapter 7. As far as the inventory goes, you have to consider, all right, I lost inventory, so we credit our inventory and we get this new account called cost of goods sold, which is an expense account. Yep. That is specifically used to track, all right, when did we lose inventory? Now, when we're returning, again, we have 2 separate journal entries. We have our profit one, which deals with sales returns and allowances as a debit, because technically we're not lowering our sales. We want to keep our sales pure. I'll show you guys why afterwards, but you want to keep your sales pure. And then you have your account receivable because they owe you less. Then you have your inventory because you got your inventory back, you debit that inventory and you lose cost of goods sold. You have to lower your cost of goods sold because you technically didn't sell it. That cost of goods sold was false. So you have to,
Yeah.
you have to step
Reverse
back
it.
a little, reverse it. Then when you're dealing with shipping, you have delivery expense. It can be said in many different ways, but I use delivery expense just because that's the way I know it's more universal. It makes a lot more sense to me than transport out or freight out. But those might be on your homework. Then you have cash, because usually in every problem I've seen, you've always paid for it in cash. So that's the only reason we're just saying cash, because you guys are gonna get a difficult problem, I hope. And the last thing is sales discounts, cash and accounts receivable when you're when they pay on discount period. Again, we're not going to lower our sales. Instead, we're gonna have a new account called sales discount. We're gonna get our cash and we're gonna get rid of that account receivable because they owe us no more money. So those are all the journal entries. And the reason why we keep sales pure is because we want to figure out our gross profit. Which is net sales minus cost of goods sold. And our net sales is split up into three things. Our sales returns and allowances, and our sales discount. So whenever you think about it, the reason why we keep all of our sales pure is because we want to figure out, okay, if I made $5 million through sales, but then I lost 3 million in returns and allowances and 1 million in discounts, I only was able to retain 1 million. So now I'm able to say, all right, people are returning way too much. What's the issue? Do we have to fix our return policy or do we have to fix our product? So we're able to actually indicate where error is. And then you take those net sales, cost of goods sold, to get gross profit, because you want to figure out, all right, once again, we'll say we made 5 million in net sales after everything's been accounted for, but our cost of goods sold was 4 million. We have to take a step back and say, okay, why is it 4 million? Can we make it lower? Because that way we can increase our gross profit. And that's why we have it all split out. I'll close the door. This thing will lock, so someone comes in knocking. We just have to open up for them. But any questions on any of this so far?
Can you please, I don't know if it's like self-explanatory, I just cannot understand cost of goods sold. Like, I just can't, like, if you can simplify it, please, I do not really, like, I understand it, but I need to understand it.
No, I completely understand, and it's good, like, trust me, any question like that, I'm happy to help. So cost of goods sold is a specific expense account to basically, it's the value of what you sold. It's the value of what you lost. It's specifically towards inventory, not anything else. It is basically inventory's butt buddy because they are connected. They are connected at the hip. If you lose inventory, you lose cost of goods sold, unless you return, obviously. Obviously, if you return inventory, you don't worry about cost of goods sold because technically, it's reversed. But within inventory shrinkage, within sales, within returns, you will always see cost of goods sold with inventory. You will never see it with anything else.
Yeah.
And it's just that expense to say we sold or we lost a product.
Is that like that with like, am I only going to see that in future accounting policies, like cost of goods sold with inventory?
Yes, basically, they will never deviate. Inventory and cost of goods sold are basically connected at the hip. Yeah, so you will, anytime you lose inventory, that is not by returning inventory, you are dealing with cost of goods sold, which basically says it's an expense, we lost inventory. It's the same thing if you think about supplies expense. When we have supplies, but we use it up, we consider that supplies expense when we lose it. Same thing with inventory. Instead of inventory expense, though, we call it cost of goods sold. Does that help out?
A little bit. Okay, so can you like put it in number form?
Yes.
Just
So-
like an example, please.
So we will make a quick little problem.
I'm sorry, guys.
No, you're good. I want to do that.
No. Never be sorry about asking questions because there is always someone else who might have that same question. So let's say we sold $1,000 on credit. Inventory was 1,000. So there's two big important things within this. One is the fact your profit. Again, I'm so used to like making my videos. So we worry about two journal entries. One is this credit. Saying, all right, we sold on credit. The next one is how much was inventory worth? And this is a very, very, very simplified version of anything you're gonna see on like a question on tests or stuff. Usually you'll have like the terms, FOB and all that fun stuff. But as far as this shows, you have your $3,000 on credit, you have your inventory, that was 1,000. So we first worry about what's on credit. Well, that's gonna be what's the profit. So then we take our profit and we consider it. We know, all right, we sold on credit, that's accounts receivable. We know that we sold something, so we got our sales. Now, the next thing you have to worry about is your inventory. We'll say, all right, pick it up. So, you know, cost of goods sold, it's an expense, so it is debited. Oh, I'm gonna put cost of goods. That makes sense. We specifically make this and use this in this kind of format because again, we can't really add it into our sales. If we add it into our sales, we'd have, it wouldn't balance. Because we specifically can't say, all right, there was $4,000 when technically that wouldn't add up.
Right.
They owe us 3,000 because that's what we handshake to pay. So we have to separate this into these two sections to say, all right, inventory, cost of goods sold, accounts receivable, and sales. Profit. Inventory. Does that help out?
Yes,
Awesome.
thank you.
Of course. So, any questions so far? All right. Does anybody have anything to work on, or do you guys want to do some more practice problems? Because we can go through practice problems.
Practice problem.
Practice problems?
Oh, but I was hoping to get the water bill with some of those. But,
No, it's okay. If anything, I'm gonna set up some practice problems. I'll have you guys work on them. I'm gonna help you out with the homework.
okay.
So. All right, y'all wanna be buyer or seller?
Buyers, what? Buyers.
Buyer
I
first?
vote seller.
Vote seller, who votes seller, who votes buyer? So seller, hands up,
I don't think.
So.
seller, so you've been outvoted.
I was thinking like maybe it'd be funny if you pulled that card out.
Alright. Let y'all come up and work on this.
Go up.
Use one of the, I think we have 2 markers, but we also figured out you guys don't wanna use it at the exact same time. What were you gonna say?
Oh,
Oh, I thought you were asking.
I was asking about shipping expenses and stuff, right?
Shipping expense? Yes, it's shipping expense or delivery expense. It's whatever expense makes sense for shipping.
Can we credit cost of goods sold?
Yeah.
Okay.
But only when you're returning inventory. So you're right on that. Okay.
Yeah, it's a green.
So
Okay, so we saw. okay,
this is
remember
good.
$16,000?
I see that inventory and AR were debited and credited. That wouldn't be the exact answer. This would be the one because what you're saying here is that you gained inventory and people owe you less.
Gotcha.
So, and this one as well is perfect. Now we just have to worry about the last bit here.
So it's gonna be 14,550.
You're right.
Wait, I messed it up.
How crazy, I'm gonna cry, it's all your fault, you know that? Gas.
Wait, what's 15,000 minus 450?
Huh?
15,000 minus 450?
14,550.
14.
14,550.
And what do we have
Okay,
to
what's
worry?
one, yeah, okay, so nothing that's inventory, I'm sorry.
Is that good?
That is perfect.
Oh my gosh, guys, we work together.
It's good. I'm actually really proud of y'all. Now you just have to worry about number of shipping, so.
Shipping, what I did for shipping was I did shipping expense being deposited by 200 and being cash, being credited by 200.
Perfect.
Is shipping expensive? Delivery expensive?
Same thing. That's why I said that you're gonna gear it in different ways. I think there's a chance, I see it even on Connect, we use 5 different ways depending on the feature. So that's, it's basically fried out, transportation out, delivery expense, or shipping expense. But as long as you know, and especially for the test, just say, all right, know what expense you wanna use, and as long as the teacher says, yeah, I can use that expense, you're good to go.
What's SRA stand for again?
Sales returns and losses.
Okay, thank you.
What was the homework?
Same questions.
Oh, yeah, but homework got extended to Friday, right?
Yeah, it's extended to Friday, cause, you guys haven't covered everything in chapter, 4, but you guys are just missing the multi-step income statement.
Oh, that makes me want, that makes me want, that just makes me want to, yeah, let's leave it at that.
The multi-step income statement is.
Appreciate that. Feel the same way. All right, paid amount due.
I'm not planning to.
No,
And as well too, like I said, I record all these and so far we have 3 videos up on the YouTube for chapter 1, 2, 7, and the exam review for 1. And after this week, we'll have one for chapter 4
On YouTube.
on the YouTube.
Started doing this.
I'm glad.
Okay, so we need-
I mean, like if people didn't come in person, there'd be no content.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have to have the
We
people
got
that come in person, and then we have to have the people that,
No problem.
yeah, or if you find things helpful here, then you're able to revisit them in the YouTubes.
YouTubes.
All right,
Love watching the YouTube video. Love
So-
my Looney Tunes.
real quick, I'm gonna put this video, I'm just gonna.
Okay, hope I get this done.
But yeah, no, this is what would be expected to do for your tests. Or for any of the homework assignments as well, like this is all the journal entries you would just have to worry about. You got your profit, which is worrying about accounts receivable and revenue. You got your, on the homework, it will be sales, I can't change that fact, on the test, it can be revenue. On the homework, it will say sales, that way you guys don't have to look forever. Then you have to worry about, all right, the cost of goods sold. Same with when we're returning, sales returns and allowances with accounts receivable credited. And inventory debited with cost of goods sold credited. Then you got your shipping expense and your cash. And then when they pay the full amount, you got all of these sales discount, cash, and accounts receivable. And you guys have a perfect little T-chart for it.
Yeah.
So after the, after y'all are done writing this down, I'll put one as the buyers and see how that goes. Y'all ready?
There's a point.
Yeah. And did anyone have any questions about the 2/10? Or does everyone understand what 2/10 or 3/10 and in over 60 mean?
60 days.
Yep, that is very important to know.
Yeah, it's just, yep, it's just like, but just extended out the uppers.
Yupperings. Yeah, her.
This is gonna get weird, there's a weird chapter.
It is very weird because it starts getting, we go over the concepts and then we start going into like the uses of it. Like I said, I have both classifications for specifically the new accounts that we have on a blueprint and as well as the concepts. So after this, if you guys want to practice on that, or if we want to do even more practice problems, we got either optional. But I'm gonna leave this to y'all. We purchased a lot of inventory.
I want you to take the short hands. What's it again?
The last.
Yes. Yeah, of course.
Oh, I
It-
forgot the other numbers, but you know, it's okay.
You know, accounts payable is just 12.
Yeah, totally down with those.
No, this is perfect, honestly. Using that account payable chart, inventory and cash, we got accounts payable here with inventory here. Because you're losing it, yeah.
I was so tempted to add on the 100 from shipping expense, but I was like, wait a minute, this only applies for accounts payable, not like.
Yeah.
Everything, the other thing.
I call accounts payable and accounts receivable in this chapter anchor accounts, because if you notice, Nothing. yep. We basically, this whole journal entry revolves around accounts payable. Same thing over with our accounts receivable right over here. Everything revolves around accounts receivable. You remember this for like the last portion of it, you know that this is your anchor. This is what you have to get to if you're paying within discount. We're pulling this back too. I know we made a chart, but now you guys get to see with the numbers how this all looks. And they're very similar in ways, but also very different. And you can see how, all right, inventory. And then all the 50 million accounts that sales has. Any questions on this so far?
So when it says FOB shipping, point, like buyers responsible, we had to pay to get our inventory.
Yep.
And then the other one,
Destination.
destination, buyers responsible. So then we deliver it to them. Okay, now I get it. Huh?
See?
Well, okay, yeah, so destination, oh yeah, destination, when you're the seller, to bring it to them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you know how I usually destination, I
How?
was like, oh, they're bringing it to me.
Perfect. No, that's honestly. So, but no, this is all perfect. This is what you would see on any of your homework and any of the tests. This is the exact process you would go through for all the journal entries. Now, yeah, of course, you know. Oh, sorry. You're good. I pride myself on the lack of photos with me.
No, you're good.
So, now, do you guys wanna keep working on the practice, or do you guys want to try a blue kit or blue kits? All right, classifications or concepts?
My vote, I don't care.
I know.
At least they don't make concepts, so just like probably using the application, what it is.
Okay, you got so far though. So, anybody have any questions on any of these concepts that really stuck out to y'all? I love that you wrote them down. So, this one's first on the docket.
I was having trouble with the FOB destination. There was one question that asked. Yes, I got the one written down, ownership transfers when delivery arrives to a buyer's place of business, that's destination.
Yes.
But there was a second question where I thought that one was destination.
It's worded differently. So one says, all right, when it gets to the buyer's destination, that's destination. When it leaves the shipping place, it's shipping point, basically. So basically means at that point, at those specific points is when the other person's responsible for it. So at shipping, it's where the buyer's responsible for it right off the bat. With destination, the seller is responsible for it till it gets there. So, was there any other ones that struck out to anyone?
I'm just one question, it's gonna really move far.
Hey, that's good. All right. If there's no more questions on this one, I'll swap it over to the classifications one too, to see if you guys could test your knowledge on those.
I kept upgrading, like I had like 3 units tops on the field, but they were just really high upgraded. Highly upgraded.
So, was there anything that was confusing on those?
Yeah.
I forgot the function.
I think it says something about like,
Contra revenue, expenses,
Yeah, contra revenue is like, yeah, how much ones?
so.
Which ones with contra revenue, which ones with expense?
So what do you take out of sales to get net sales? Discounts is a contra revenue account. What other thing? Yes, they're all under equity. But the reason why I wanted to split it up to show that kind of process is specifically because they're contra revenue accounts. Because they go against revenue. They're basically like expenses, but revenue expenses, if that makes sense. That's why we debit them. Yep.
Oh, okay, yeah, because revenue would increase equity.
Revenue increases equity. So a contra revenue account basically just lowers equity down, and it lowers our sales because sales discount and sales returns and allowances specifically are tied to sales to lower them. Was there any other ones?
Oh, that's like a million,
How are the debits and credits?
Yeah, once I figured out that, oh wait, this thing's an expense, like everything we went over, an agreement, I don't know, window or expense or revenue. So I'll figure out, once I figure out that was under a bank balance.
Honestly, I didn't think, yeah, that there was gonna be those, because they're like, things like, is it on the balance sheet or is it on the income statement?
Since there was only 6 accounts, I thought it would be just better to put it all into. Like, okay, crash course, we're gonna figure out if they debit credit, we're gonna figure out if what the classification is, where they are in the balance sheet, where they are in the financial statements and all that fun stuff.
So why is gross profit in the income statement?
Because technically you never find gross profit in the balance sheet. You'll only ever find the gross profit within the income statement. You guys haven't gone over the multi-step income statement to really know it, but whenever you look at it, it's basically at the very top.
So it's called, gross profit is, net sales minus, COG, right?
Yep. And this is the top of your multi-step income statement.
Okay, COGS is, expense, right?
Yes, cost of goods.
Okay, so yeah, it makes sense why gross product would be in there.
So, and this is done before you expense anything else. So you just focus on this portion, so we could figure out, all right. As a managerial standpoint, where are we losing money? And to get to this point before we even look at our other expenses.
So when it comes to, like, let's say we had a price plan, we had like revenue and like all different types of expenses, and we had cost of goods sold and all the like the sales and all that. Would you do like, gross profit first before?
Yep. Gross profit goes first, and you always just focus, okay, how do I get, because sometimes you even have to figure out your net sales beforehand. So you figure out, all right, net sales, get your cost of goods sold, then get your gross profit. Huh? Yep. Well, I know for a fact, you guys, at least last semester, we didn't have enough time to go over the full of multi-step income statement. I don't know if you guys will as well, but what is important is this. This is incredibly important and will be on this.
Okay, so wait. Okay, no.
Is there any other questions or any account that was confusing? No? Good to hear. I think that's the most of everything in chapter 4, for like the crash course and all that. Because I think the only other thing is really shrinkages and inventory, but the biggest thing with shrinkages and inventory is just whatever you find that is your difference that you're missing is going to be your cost of goods sold in your inventory. And you guys don't need to do periodic method, but you do need to know the difference between periodic and perpetual. That's why it's on the concepts portion, where it's like, all right, we have the physical counts, we have to physically count it and we have to update it at the end of the period while perpetual is always doing it. I like to say, all right, periodic is, okay, I'll get to it later. Well, perpetual is, all right, tell me it now. I know.
So, like, what about, inventory evaluation, like, that costs, like, would that also be like a recognition thing?
So inventory evaluation. So that is more or less just dealing with trying to make sure, all right, do we have the right count? Because if you have a different ending value than what you actually have, you're gonna have issues. So that's why we figure out, all right, cost of goods sold and inventory. With that, so inventory evaluation is more or less just figuring out, all right, the net cost of inventory purchase. You're not gonna see that on a balance sheet, but you will need to know how to do that, which is basically you have how much it costs of inventory, the less of returns, less of discounts, how much it took to transport in. If you notice, if we go back over here, go back right here to when we were doing our journal entries. So if we were doing the periodic, all of these would be something named something different. Periodic is when you say, all right, purchase, accounts payable, purchase and returns, or purchase, returns, and allowances. And down here, it would be discounts, and up here, it would be that transportation in. It would basically be like keeping everything pure kind of way, the same way that sales is done. But the difference is that because we're doing the perpetual method, everything's under inventory. Everything in your homework is going to be under inventory for the journal entries. But if you were to do the inventory evaluation, we'll take this problem for an example. We're just going to keep track of it. All right. We know the purchase was 14,000.
No, minus, what was this now? Is it what could be on the field?
120.
Okay, 120 for minus, so it'd be minus 120 for discount. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Is that the order we have to take kind of take it in?
As long as you have the purchase first, you should have the rest like in. It shouldn't matter too much.
Okay, cause I was thinking if I like, let's just say I did purchase. Then I did the 2% discount, so as long as and then I did all the other stuff, as long as I purchased first, it'll work.
Yeah, as long as you have purchase first, it works.
Okay,
So will the order still matter though if you're 16 million with nothing?
Yes, order matters with accounting, definitely.
okay, got it, so
So
it goes purchase, then it's gonna be
Returns.
returns, then discount, then transportation.
So, something to keep in mind too, we can do this very easy with an inventory key chart, if you ever want to double check your work. We know we purchased 14,000. I know I returned 2,000. I know I also paid 100.
But
Wait.
why do we subtract transportation?
We don't. That was me just,
Oh,
that was me just going with the flow. We don't. This is slightly wrong.
For a second, I was like, wait, so FOB does that? Like. Okay.
Alright. But yeah, so if you were to follow along with just a T chart going through your journal entries, you get the same amount. So that's a good way to double check yourself. It's basically just the evaluation of inventory is basically, all right, what's the value of inventory? Let's see.
Let's see. Didn't say.
I love T charts.
That's because they clear up on everything pretty well.
Mhm.
And so-
You'll find with accounting majors too, they rather love or hate T charts.
Really?
They're not that bad, it's pretty easy,
They're not, but there's some people, like, there's other ways to do it, some people will do it this way, because this is basically a T chart, it's just worded differently. Some people like it better because that way it's a lot more involved, you're able to see specifically step by step. While T charts, you toss things in, for someone like me, like, I'm able to keep track very well. And if I need to, I can look back. Or if you want, you can put little notes here on the T chart. But sometimes it does get confusing for some people.
Yeah.
So it really just depends on the type of person you are. It's kind of like how people learn differently. I'm much more of a kinetic and visual learner. Some people do better with reading. Some people do better, again,
It's the worst, it's like the worst thing that people could ever force on a person.
no, I feel that my reading comprehension level is very low. I'll ace classes with a lecturer, but I'll take a week to really actually go through a chapter of a book, even if it's 10 pages. I don't know why.
Dude,
I don't know
it's a
why.
miserable experience, I don't like, I have to work with it.
Yeah.
We learn
Oh yeah, definitely. But like hearing and like seeing stuff, that's why I like accounting, because it's all numbers and everyone, all the teachers are fantastic because they go through it very thoroughly. But yeah, I think besides that, that's like the most crash course. If you guys have anything you guys want to focus on, or if you guys just want to sit here, do homework, and I'll just help everyone around, or I still have blue kits for from the past chapters, or if you guys want to go through the chapter 4 chapters again.